One cold evening, the sky was shrouded in thick white mist that drifted along the ridges of the mountains in rural Japan. A train slowly rolled into a tiny, nearly deserted station. The dim light bulbs hanging along the platform flickered on and off, as if they might die at any moment. Two foreign travelers, Jake and Leo, European men in their late 20s, stepped off the train with their large backpacks. They had come to explore the hidden charm of the Japanese countryside and were especially eager to stay at an old ryokan. They had found mention of it in a nameless, outdated travel blog post. No reviews, no photos, not even a trace on Google Street View.
This place isn't even on Google Maps,
Leo muttered, tucking his phone back into his backpack.
Even better,
Jake said with a faint smile.
I'm tired of tourist traps full of people.
From the station, they had to walk another mile or so down a winding dirt road, past pine forests and a narrow stream, until they reached the base of a mountain in the Tohoku region. Finally, they arrived at the forgotten village of Hanasaki, the same village mentioned in the post. They climbed uphill for another 20 minutes, passing the ruins of a shrine, overgrown weeds, and a faded torii gate so weathered that its inscriptions were barely visible. At last, a 3-story wooden house loomed before them. A weathered wooden sign stood at the entrance, its ink faded but still legible. Ryokan Yamazato. The old wooden door creaked open slowly, before Jake's hand even touched it. A high-pitched squeal echoed through the air, followed by the faint fragrance of dried flowers drifting toward them. A woman stood in the entryway. She wore a faded brown kimono patterned with pale cherry blossoms, so faint they were almost invisible unless one looked closely. Her skin was so white it nearly glowed. "Welcome," she said softly. Her voice was calm and gentle, yet unnervingly flat.
My name is Sae. I take care of this ryokan.
Her tone was polite, but her eyes were empty, devoid of warmth or light. Combined with the heavy, overcast weather, the atmosphere was suffocating. Sae guided them to their room on the second floor. It was a medium-sized chamber decorated in traditional Japanese style. The tatami mats groaned underfoot with age. Sliding open the balcony door revealed a short wooden veranda overlooking mist-covered mountains.
There are no other guests?
Leo asked, noticing how empty the place felt on their way up.
This season is always quiet,
She replied with a faint smile.
The village is difficult to reach. Tonight, it's just the two of you. Please, relax.
That night, as the two men slept, a noise echoed through the hallway outside. It sounded like something moving slowly across the dry wooden floorboards. Jake awoke, lying still, heart pounding, listening. The sound crept closer, inching past their room, then slowly faded away. The next morning at breakfast, Jake asked Sae about it.
Oh, this building is very old,
She said, smiling faintly.
The wood groans. It's nothing unusual.
She bent down to arrange their dishes. For a split second, Jake thought he saw her neck shift at an impossible angle, just slightly wrong. But when he blinked, everything looked normal again. That afternoon, Jake and Leo were sitting in the lounge on the ground floor, sipping tea and gazing out at the mist-covered view. Sai sat quietly in the corner of the room, waiting to refill their cups, or bring more snacks if needed. Jake's eyes wandered around the room until they landed on the small decorative mirror propped against the wall. In its reflection, he saw Sai, sitting silently in the corner. But then, her reflection began to change. Her neck was stretching, slowly, unnaturally, longer and longer, until it reached the ceiling. Jake jolted so hard that his teacup slipped from his hand and shattered against the floor. When he whipped his head back toward the mirror, Sai was sitting there as before, her neck completely normal.
Are you all right?
She asked, lifting her head with that same calm, empty tone. Jake nodded quickly, swallowing against the tight knot in his throat. He forced a faint smile, but inside, his blood ran cold. Later, after Sai had left them alone, Jake described to Leo what he had seen in the mirror. Leo chuckled nervously, dismissing it as fatigue or imagination. Still, the two agreed to secretly explore the ryokan more thoroughly that evening, while Sai was busy preparing dinner in the kitchen. As they crept up the second-floor stairs, they noticed deep scratches in the wooden floorboards, long grooves starting from the first step, dragging upward, stretching all the way to the third floor. It looked as though something had been dragged up and down these stairs, over and over again. Ignoring their unease, they climbed to the third floor. It was one wide, open space with no guest rooms, filled with scattered old furniture. Dust lay thick on everything, except one low vanity table. Unlike the rest, this one was strangely clean, as if still in use. On top of the vanity lay an old notebook. The cover was yellowed and worn, its surface marked with handwritten Japanese characters that neither of them could read. Curious, Leo snapped a photo with his phone and ran it through a translation app. The crude translation appeared on the screen.
He said we would be together forever, but he abandoned me with this curse. I am still waiting for him to return, to be with me again.
Leo laughed nervously.
Okay, this is literally the setup of a horror movie.
But Jake wasn't laughing. His eyes were fixed on the final page of the notebook. Drawn there was a sketch of a young woman in a cherry blossom-patterned kimono, sitting on a veranda, her neck stretched upward, impossibly long, floating in the air above her body. That night, after they had gone to bed, Leo decided to sneak out alone. He wanted to record a night exploration for his YouTube channel, a spooky little adventure around the ryokan's grounds. With a flashlight in one hand and his camera in the other, he wandered toward the abandoned shrine deep in the woods.
Do you think I'll find something scary out here?
He whispered into the lens. He chuckled, then added in a teasing tone,
Maybe I'll meet the long-neck ghost tonight.
Just then, a sudden gust of wind blew through the trees, swallowing his laugh. His flashlight flickered, then died, plunging him into pitch-black darkness. Sight was useless now, but his ears worked all too well. The sound of something slithering across dry leaves, the faint rasp of heavy breathing, wet and rattling, moved closer, circling him. Panicked, Leo fumbled with his phone to turn on the camera's flash, and then he heard it. Something shifting above him. Slowly, he tilted his head upward. From the branches hung the body of a woman in a faded kimono. Her neck was coiled around the wood like a serpent, suspending her in mid-air. Her face was pale, her lips stretched into a smile so wide her jaw seemed broken. Her long neck suddenly whipped downward, lunging toward him like a striking snake. The camera dropped to the ground, its lens tilted sideways, still recording. All it captured was the sound of rustling leaves and Leo's final, blood-curdling scream. Ah! Jake woke in the middle of the night to find that Leo hadn't returned. The clock read nearly 3 a.m. His phone had no signal. Worried, he went downstairs. The front door of the ryokan was slightly ajar. A cold wind slipped inside, scattering dried petals across the floor. Just as Jake reached for the door to step outside, faint footsteps echoed behind him. He turned. Down the hallway, someone was standing in the shadows.
Leo!
Jake shouted, relief flooding his chest. But Leo didn't answer. He stood motionless, back turned. Then, his head began to tilt, slowly. Too far. His neck stretching, lengthening. Jake stumbled backward as the figure turned around. It was Leo, but his face was unrecognizable. His mouth was torn open, stretching to his ears, his jaw dangling like a ripped bag. The gaping wound writhed as multiple voices shrieked in unison from deep within his throat. Jake bolted up the stairs without looking back. He slammed the sliding door to his room shut and collapsed against it, gasping for air. When his breathing steadied, his eyes fell on something lying in the middle of the tatami floor. The old notebook. The very same one they had found on the 3rd floor. But how had it gotten here? With trembling hands, he flipped through the pages. New writing had appeared, writing that hadn't been there before. A drawing filled the last page. It was a man's face, fierce eyes, a twisted smile. Behind him, sketched in detail, was the front of the ryokan itself. Beneath the image, written in red ink, "He has returned. Returned as promised." The sound of a sliding door creaked open behind him. Jake spun around, clutching his flashlight like a weapon. Sae was standing in the doorway, but this time she wasn't hiding it. Her neck stretched upward, twisting unnaturally in the air. The cracking of bones echoed, loud as if right beside his ears. She lowered her head toward him, circling him with her impossibly long neck, like a predator playing with its prey. She whispered softly, her voice chilling.
Gaze upon your form, my love.
Then, darkness swallowed the room. A massive shadow entered behind her. Heavy footsteps struck the wooden floor. A colossal figure bent to fit through the doorway. Moonlight filtered faintly into the room, enough for Jake to see it. A man, or what was left of one. His body was enormous, shriveled like charred flesh. His neck wound around his torso again and again like a grotesque coil. His eyes were empty sockets, but Jake could feel them staring directly into his soul. The thing leaned closer, its eyeless face pressed against his, breath cold and foul. Jake convulsed as a crushing sensation invaded his chest. Something unseen forced its way down his throat, flooding his body. His limbs grew heavy, his vision dimmed. Darkness consumed him. And then, nothing. Say's neck recoiled, folding back into her body. She sank gracefully to the floor, kneeling beside Jake's limp form. Her hand caressed his cheek, her eyes glowing with joy. "Perfect. You've returned to me," she whispered tenderly. Jake's eyes flickered open. Slowly, he reached up and clasped her hand in his.
I will stay with you.
He murmured, His voice was no longer entirely his own.
Together. Forever.
The village of Hanasaki never appears on any official map. No signs point the way. No cell service reaches its borders. The only trace of it lies in forgotten message boards and nameless travel blogs, long abandoned. But if you ever stumble across an old wooden sign that reads Ryokan Yamazato, or if you smell the faint fragrance of dried flowers where none should be, do not follow it, because if you do, you may never come back.